Alright, let's talk about how you can control upgrading your StarCraft dudes using the Decorator pattern. So this Marine has a base damage of 6, and every time you give him one of these upgrades, it's going to add +1 to his base damage. He also has a base armor of 0, and every time you give him an armor upgrade, it'll add +1 to his armor. So he can start with 6 damage and go 7, 8, 9 for a total of 9, and 0 armor, 1, 2, 3 for a total of 3. So let's talk about how the Decorator pattern can help manage these types of upgrades, like a weapon upgrade or an armor upgrade or stim pack or combat shield, things like that. So the final implementation will look something like this. So infantry is a new Marine, and Marine, I just love typing that G, is a new weapon upgrade, and pass in the Marine. So you can see we have 3 things here. We have the infantry type, or the interface that the Marine is, and also a weapon upgrade, which will also have to be an infantry type so that it matches. And you can see there's a little trick going on here that because this matches and you pass in the Marine, some sort of magic has to be happening behind the scenes. And we'll get to that in just a second. But first, let's create our infantry interface. So we'll just put this in PatternCraft Decorator and jump in and create the damage and the armor. So all infantry have damage and armor. Now the Marine, because he implements, or he needs to match this type of infantry, that means he will have to implement infantry. So we'll make sure that he implements all those methods, and that his damage will return 6 and his armor damage will return, or his armor will be 0. So far we have our infantry, we have a Marine that implements the infantry interface, and so we have that first line done. Now if we look at the UML so far, you can see it's pretty simply just a Marine, which is a class that implements infantry. This will get a little more complex down the road, but it's good to keep track of how this is growing. So to create this weapon upgrade, we actually need to create a class for this to extend first. And this class will be our Infantry Decorator. So let's come into the Decorator package. We'll create a class, and we will call this Infantry Decorator. That was created off screen. I'll drag it over here. So the Infantry Decorator is going to do that little trick of passing in the Marine. In this case, it's going to be a type of infantry. So to do that, let's create a field that will hold our infantry. So infantry, and this will be protected so that any class that subclasses it can access it. And then we'll create our constructor, which will take the infantry in. Now, the kind of little magic trick we do here is that we're going to delegate the armor and damage to the infantry that gets passed in. So if you look at what's happening, so the Marine will get passed in, and then since this guy is now the Marine, any time it tries to access the damage, it'll access the Marine's damage. Anytime it tries to access the armor, it'll access the Marine's armor. So now if we extend this class, say for example with a weapon upgrade, then we'll put the PatternCraft Decorator. If we extend this class, this extends Infantry Decorator, then all we have to do is override this damage method, because it's a weapon upgrade, and say +1 to damage. Now, this isn't quite working. You can see that the types are still mismatched, so you have to do one last little trick in here, and that's within the Infantry Decorator. This will also implement the infantry. So this decorator is doing two tricks. One is it's passing in the infantry and then assigning it to this field so that anytime you access through the damage or the armor, it's going to delegate those calls back to the infantry damage or the infantry armor. So say, for example, the Marines damage or the Marines armor. And it's also going to implement infantry itself so that it can match when you assign the Marine to a new upgrade. It's a really cool trick, and now when you extend this, extend the Infantry Decorator with something like a weapon upgrade, now all you have to do is override something like damage. So this is going back to accessing the original Marine that got passed in, and then boost the stats by 1. So if you look at the UML now, you can see we have our infantry with the Marine, and then the Infantry Decorator, which also implements infantry, and then the upgrade that extends it. And let's show the constructors too. So to see this in action, we're just going to do some simple traces. There's not too much visual we could do with this. So let's just see what damage is before and after, just to prove that I'm not making this up. So we'll debug. And you'll see that damage before was 6 and that damage after is 7. Now, this may seem like a lot of work just to do something like +1 to damage, but what happens when you want to do an armor upgrade? Let's do that quickly here. We will jump into the package, create a new class. We will call this one armor upgrade. That got created off screen, so I'll drag it over here. Now, all we have to do to create this armor upgrade is extend the Infantry Decorator, and then the constructor has to match, and then override armor, and then +1 to armor. Now we have an armor upgrade that we can apply over and over again to our Marine. So if we now say Marine is a new armor upgrade, and again we're going to pass in the Marine, and we can trace out Marine armor. Let's duplicate this and put one above it as well. And we'll do this a few times. Just so you can see the armor stacking on each other. And if we debug this, you can see that the armor starts at 0. That is before, whoops, I lost my console panel. Armor starts at 0 and goes to 1, 2, 3, and 4. So starts at 0 before the upgrade is applied, then 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we have these armor upgrades available to apply to our Marines. So if you look at the UML again, you'll see now we have our infantry with decorators, armor upgrade, weapon upgrade, and you can just imagine all the different types of upgrades you can create for this. Now, an even extra benefit for this is that if we want to create, say for example, let's look at what the stats for a Marauder is. So this Marauder, it uses the same exact upgrades, but its damage starts at 10. So you can see it's the same upgrades. Its damage starts at 10 and its armor starts at 1. So if we jump over here and we create a this time a Marauder class, all we have to do for this Marauder class to work, let me get him on screen, is implement infantry, implement the methods, give him a damage of 10 and an armor of 1, and now he fits just like a puzzle piece right in. You can see a new Marauder, which is typed infantry, And if you start adding these, Marauder is a new weapon upgrade. Pass in the Marauder. We can trace the before and after on the Marauder. Damage, so that'll be before and that'll be after. And this should be 10 and then 11. So yep, 10 and 11. So this exact same weapon upgrade which worked for the Marine is also working for the Marauder. The armor upgrades will also work between the two, and you can see in the UML again that all of these classes that you create that extend or that implement infantry will be able to take these decorators, because the decorator implements infantry, and then it passes this instance into the decorator, and then the decorator delegates all that responsibility back to the instance that you pass in. So it's really a cool little trick. I just want to go through it one more time. So just get rid of everything that's extra here. Just go through the basics one more time. So we have a Marine class which implements infantry, and we also have a base decorator class which implements infantry. It implements it so that it can match when you go equals new weapon upgrade or assign it to a new weapon upgrade. That needs to be of a type infantry. And it also, when you pass in the instance of an infantry into the constructor, it assigns it to this field, and anytime you access the damage or the armor or anything else that's part of the infantry interface, it'll delegate that call back to the infantry, back to the instance that you passed into it. So it's going to stack those on top of it whenever you extend this class into something like a weapon upgrade, which would just simply override damage +1, or something like an armor upgrade, which would override the armor and then just add 1. So that's the decorator pattern in a nutshell. It can get a bit more complicated if you start adding some of these other types of upgrades, which I may show in a later decorator pattern tutorial. Also, I'll probably revisit the decorator pattern when you start talking about some of the more creational patterns like a factory and how you can manage these decorators without having to write them all out by hand. So I hope that helps.